Everybody ready? Let's begin, guys. Let's start. All right, I'd like to begin first with a comparison. Why would you be the best person to be the Republican candidate for Arizona? I'm going to start with Mr. Masters.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Look, this election is about the future. Actually, it's an election about whether we're going to have a future at all. And a lot of us candidates here are going to sound the same on a whole host of very important issues. You know, we all want to secure the border. We all want to stop inflation, right? We all want to stop election fraud. But what about the new and emerging issues, right? What about big tech? And we'll talk more about that. What about ESG scores, right, and the wokeification of corporate America? What about Chinese-style social credit systems? Speaking of the Chinese, what about the CCP and Bill Gates buying up all this farmland, right? What's going on here? Well, I'm paying attention and uniquely understand these new and modern threats, right? I'm a young father of 3, and I look ahead, and I'm terrified at the future that my kids are on track to inherit, right? 30 years from now, when my boys, they're 6, 8, and 2, 30 years from now, they'll be my age. And I want them to grow up in a country that works and in America that we still recognize. That's why I'm uniquely suited to make that happen for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Masters. Next to General McGuire.
John, thank you very much. Thanks to Newsmax for having us. It's great to have you in Phoenix. Faith, family, duty. That's the paradigm that I've lived by my entire career. Only by the grace of God and his divine providence am I standing here before you tonight. My lovely wife, Debbie, 3 daughters, 2 grandkids, is the reason I'm up here. And on the duty side, I took an oath to protect and defend this nation and wore the cloth of the nation for nearly 38 years. And I've never felt the threat of the Republic pulled tighter. And unlike the other candidates on the stage, the one thing that differentiates me from every other is leadership. I'm a proven, trusted, confident leader that's deployed troops to the border, that understands what it means when we risk blood and treasure overseas, that has looked at the family members of these great young men and women and said everything's going to be okay. And I'm looking at America tonight as the leader that can turn this around.
Thank you, General. Mr. Lehman.
Well, again, thank you, Newsmax, and thank you, John. To line it up just a little bit, John, I'm eminently qualified for D.C. from the age of 7. I'm a farm boy, and the first job I had was shoveling manure, so I'm already ready to go to D.C. and take care of things. So, guys, Arizona holds the key to this republic. 245 years we've been building this, and great men and women have gone to battle for it. Guys, I'm in this to win it, to beat Mark Kelly and that George Soros machine. It is not for the faint of heart. This is not for, the young at heart. It's not for California globalists. This is for all the marbles. That's why I'm in this, guys. Send someone who's been a college linebacker, a paratrooper, a builder of billion-dollar companies to make sure that those paychecks were there with those people. We've already invested. We built 9 offices across this state, already made over 1 million phone calls. We are ready to do battle with that George Soros and Kelly machine to save this republic. Thank you, John.
All right, let's move on to border security now. Border security, of course, is a top issue for all of your campaigns. In 2020, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Service recorded almost 650,000 border encounters with migrants. So far this year, they have recorded 1.7 million. And of course, we're only 7 months into the year. Now, if elected, what would you do about the border knowing that President Biden has veto power? We'll start with you, General McGuire.
Yeah, thank you. On midnight, January 20th, 2021, Joe Biden zeroed out the funding for 1,030 of my subordinates that were fully federally funded to support Customs, Border Patrol, ICE, and Immigration Services. I said in one of my first interviews on Newsmax, that's dereliction of duty. That's like my humbling privilege to be the commanding general of 8,300 and deploying them forward and cutting off all their sustainment, logistics, operational support, and communications. The very first thing I'll do in the United States Senate is vote to get the $6 billion to build and complete the wall, reactivate the 1,030 guardsmen that are there, get the surveillance helicopters that were on duty through 2014 that Obama shuttered, and reverse the policies that the Biden administration has advanced that is making it completely lawless in this state on the border. In Arizona, border security is human security. It will be the #1 issue in the primary we will all vote on.
Mr. Lehman.
John, it is the #1 issue in the state and our country. Our sovereignty is at stake. I am proud to be represented tonight by the National Border Patrol Council leader sitting in this audience. He came here because he's very active on his campaign. A great American. These guys interviewed all candidates and came away with layman as unanimous because they want a fighter. They want someone who will stop everything happening, which we did in 2020 with the Remain in Mexico policy. They've told me, and I listen as a businessman to what they need, and my job to go get it. They do not need any drones, anything else. They need someone who will stand tall for Remain in Mexico, which must be codified into law, not executive order, so they can do their job and turn everyone away. Then yes, after that, build the wall, mandatory E-Verify. But one thing I want to know, John, on the stage, Blake Masters has written a lot about open borders. He was for it before he was against it, and the border guys know a fake when they see it. And I'd like to know, to explain that, Blake, why you wrote that.
Mr. Masters?
Jim Layman, ladies and gentlemen, keeping it classy. Look, President Trump endorsed me because he knows that I'll be the best on the border. I'm the only one bold enough to say that I think Joe Biden, thank you, I think Joe Biden and Mayorkas deserve to be impeached for the dereliction of duty that they've shown at the southern border. You know, a lot of people compare Joe Biden to Jimmy Carter, but actually that's unfair to Jimmy Carter. Okay, Joe Biden is not trying to do his job. He's willfully violating federal law. I think it rises to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors, right? But your question is a good one. It's too easy for Republican candidates to say what we need to do. Build the wall, absolutely, right? E-Verify, absolutely. We need technology at the border. The correct amount of illegal immigration is 0. The problem is in 2023 and 2024, Biden will veto any good border legislation. So my pledge to you is to not vote to give Biden a damn thing. And I will whip the Republican votes to make sure that we block his agenda unless and until we get some border security. Thank you.
Next topic we have is inflation and energy prices here in this country. I know everyone's feeling this right now. Inflation and energy prices are a top concern for voters, of course, and we currently are seeing 9.1% inflation over the past year. Now, President Biden and his administration, they blame Vladimir Putin, they blame the COVID lockdowns, they blame corporate greed, they're even blaming Republicans now, including sometimes gas station owners, mom and pop shops, who are just trying to make it like the rest of us. Now, why do you, or who do you say is primarily responsible for causing the rise in gas prices, and what would you do as a senator to bring relief to Americans? And we'll start with Mr. Layman.
So we look at this and look at it from a perspective of you need business leaders in Washington. We don't need more lawyers. We don't need more politicians. There's only one business guy on the stage who's built billion-dollar companies and tens of thousands of American jobs on no debt. Also the biggest energy expert in the U.S. Senate, not bragging, it's just simply I've spent 35 years in it. There's not a single business person in that Biden administration, including their cabinet and downstream. It is pathetic what we have sent to Washington, D.C. to represent this country. We must cut spending. We must get it down so we're not competing with our individual citizens over the spending. It must be prioritized, just like you do in business. Balance the budget at home, balance the budget in business. Get back to all American energy, all of the above, all of the time, not just independence, but go to dominance. Get the woke supply chain by getting undone that they have done. A builder of supply chains as well as bringing back manufacturing to the U.S.
All right, Mr. Masters.
Well, you asked who's to blame. Joe Biden and the Democrats are to blame. This is a manufactured crisis. You know, President Trump warned us. He said if Joe Biden got anywhere near the Oval Office, gas, which was $2 at the time under President Trump, it was great. He said gas would pretty soon be $6, $7, $8. Well, here we are, right? Biden, he didn't even, all he had to do was nothing, right? If you just show up and you're lazy and you're stupid, but you inherited a stable situation, we would be so much better off right now. But Biden actively reversed all of President Trump's good America First energy policies. It's like, what did they think was going to happen? If you print $6 trillion in 1 year, you're going to get some inflation, right? If you cancel the Keystone Pipeline and you prohibit new oil and gas exploration and drilling, you're going to raise the price of gas. And now it's pathetic. We're begging Saudi Arabia to pump more oil. They won't even pick up Biden's phone call. So we know what to do. We were energy independent at the tail end of President Trump's administration. We need to re-implement those America First policies. President Trump trusts me to do that. He met with Jim Layman. He thought he was a bozo. I'm the America First candidate. That's why I'm endorsed.
We're going to get to General McGuire in just a second. I want to send it back to Mr. Layman to answer that. We got 30 seconds, Mr. Layman.
Yeah, tell us about your meeting with President Trump.
Let's look no further than where this guy's, who's holding the purse for this guy. $17 million coming out of big tech, California, globalist guy who will owe that too. I owe nothing except to the American people and taxpayer because it's my money and also the great donations across this great state. No one is going to control me or own me. He's owned right now and will be in the U.S. Senate.
Mr. Masters, another 30 seconds to you.
I don't even need to dignify that with a response. You know when the Jim Layman attacks started in this race? They started 24 hours after President Trump endorsed me. He had him ready to go. That's how it works. Jim Layman is using the slimiest D.C. consultant. He's just running the playbook. That same consultant, by the way, fact check this, who ran Martha McSally's race and lost. Okay, so these guys know how to lose Arizona. I'm going to stay positive, stay laser focused on the issues. That's why President Trump endorsed me.
All right,
Thank you.
Let's get over to General McGuire. Let him weigh in on this one.
Yeah, let me weigh on the economy for a minute. You asked about gas prices. These guys want to bicker about who's paying more for this thing. I'm not sure if self-funding from a California billionaire yourself is better, but the truth of the matter is we've never had a self-funder elected statewide in this state in over 100 years. This state elects leaders. And here's the leadership issue that's failing on the economy, John. Come November 8th, the #1 issue facing every American and every undecided voter is going to be economic security. Price of fuel, pharmaceuticals, food, and rent is going to force 75-year-olds to make a decision in this heat. How do you reverse it? You take on the environmental extremists that have taken control of the radical left and unleash access to all of our land, water, oil, minerals, fisheries, timber, and the rest. If we don't do it, we will never win. That's why I'm going to be on the Land and Natural Resources Committee to take on those people with different color hair.
Thank you, General, for that one. Let's move on to crime here. According to the FBI's latest statistics, they show that national crime rose 4.6%, while in Arizona, crime rose 8.6%. What do you attribute this rise in crime in Arizona to, and what would you do as a senator to help out that situation here in this state and also across the country? We'll start with you, Mr. Masters.
I attribute the skyrocketing crime to failed Democratic leadership. You know, you mentioned crime is up 8%. Well, drill down a little bit, homicide, right? Murder in Tucson is up 87%. In Phoenix, it's up 50%. This is the way the Democrats like it. They want every city to look like Chicago and Baltimore, right? They don't care. We're losing the will as a society to slap the handcuffs on people who do bad things. And this anti-police culture, right, this defund police madness, like it needs to stop. This country is built on the rule of law, right? And we're at risk of losing that. We have this emerging two-tier system of justice. You could be a BLM activist or an Antifa rioter in the summer of 2020. You could literally burn down a police precinct and nothing bad would happen to you. Meanwhile, CNN is standing there calling it a mostly peaceful protest while the building is in flames behind them, right? And if you did happen to find yourself in a jail cell for 24 hours, Kamala Harris's bail fund would bail you out. Okay, so this is intentional. The Democrats, they don't believe in enforcing the law, and it's why we got to kick them out and elect strong Republicans.
All right, back to you, Mr. Layman.
John, I'm also proud not only have the National Border Patrol Council endorsement, I also have the Arizona Police Association, Sheriff's Association, and the National Association of Police Officers who are here tonight representing this campaign and a major part of it because they interviewed all the candidates and came away unanimous, America, unanimous in their candidate. They don't want somebody who's been in government all their life. They don't want someone who's a young politician, rising lawyer. They want someone who's been through the hard knocks of life and understand what it's like to build companies in tough situations, to be able to back them in U.S. Senate when it's tough. When you got Schumer, you got these guys that come after you with all kind of their wokeism and Marxism. We've got to get this country back. Don't send more young politicians and lawyers, guys. Send someone who's been through the rigors of American society and work and built companies, and these guys see it, and they see it in spades. I'm very blessed. They're active on the campaign. Trust the Arizona Police and Sheriff's Association.
Did you really not?
So
we'll go to General McGuire now.
Yeah, John, I just on a quick, I know these debates love to have fact checkers. Just so we're clear, I have never been interviewed by the Border Patrol Association or the Arizona Police Association. Not sure if Blake has. I'll let him answer on that. I just want to make sure that the people that are talking to Jim give him good information. Relative to the information about the Border Patrol and lawlessness, here's what it's about. In 2018, it was about abolishing ICE. In 2020, it was about defunding police. In 2022, it has morphed into compulsory obedience. We're about to walk 40,000 service members, fine young men and women that I had the humbling privilege to be the commanding general of, out the door because they will not get a vaccine that is tantamount or equivalent to a flu shot, and I didn't once discharge a single member for not getting a flu shot. We cannot live in a country where the radical left takes control and compulsory obedience is how we behave.
Real quick before we leave this topic, I want to just ask Mr. Masters about the interview. Did that happen?
I had one or two meetings, not with all the groups that Jim Lehman mentioned. And so, General McGuire, Lehman has the facts. He doesn't care. He's happy to lie to smear his opponents. It's just the way it works.
I'll send this back to Mr.
He's got the facts.
Let me go
he
back
just lied about the general.
Let me go back to Mr. Lehman on that one.
You know, this guy took a slap also at the National Border Patrol Council and all 21,000 members. In the last debate, he's taking it again. This shot,
that is
you need to understand, that's California talk, buddy, not Arizona. We love our police and border here.
15 seconds.
Yeah. So, look, I've spent more years of my life in Arizona than Jim Lehman has, which is on a relative basis and an absolute basis. I'm a lot younger than him. You can tell. His accent, he's from a different part of the country. We welcome people to come here. That's fine. But I am Arizonan, and this is a bullshit attack.
Hey, let's take it easy.
I grew up here.
This is a family show. Let's watch the language. We'll give you 15 seconds, Mr. Lehman.
Yeah, let's remember that the only guy he's ever worked for is Peter Thiel, who, when he left the Facebook board and a few months ago, called him his most trusted advisor. That's the guy this guy's worked for all his life. He doesn't know police. I know and live with him and work with him and support him.
All right, let's move on to the next topic here and talk about big tech. Nice segue there. Big tech has become increasingly influential in our elections process. First question on this topic, should big tech be regulated by the federal government? Mr. Lehman, first to you.
Absolutely. We have given them too much leeway. And, you know, Masters came out of that world, and he's talked about how he's going to fix it. I kind of asked, if you've been over there for 12 or 14 years, why haven't you fixed it yet? You got this great mentor, Peter Thiel. You got Zuckerberg. You run around with all these guys. Why haven't you fixed it to date? You know why? Because that's where the money comes from for his campaign. They own this guy. When they come knocking on that door of the Senate, he's going to do exactly what they want him to do. Guys, I served in the military 6 years to preserve that precious First Amendment. There cannot be two systems of justice or censorship in this country. I've been censored by Facebook, the guy that his mentor was on the board of. Even my Western ad, for God's sake. You know, that was a really nice ad, right? They censored that. I mean, come on, guys. This is just a matter of getting back to the core American principles. We are all one America, and it's got to be treated that way. Send somebody to D.C. who will fight for all of us as a team player.
Now, we will talk more about that ad, and we'll get to you in a second, Mr. Masters, for your rebuttal, but I want to go to General McGuire for his response here.
Yeah, you know, I said in the last debate, I'm old enough to remember, John, if you sent all your money and resources to Nigeria, they'd send you back $1 million. So I think we have got to raise a generation of young people and digital activists across the country that understand this. When you're using digital technology, misinformation and disinformation and lies is standard. We got to have a generation of young people that can critically think, not be indoctrinated with critical race theory. We have to understand that big tech, we need to talk to the leaders at big tech about regulation, put up guardrails where necessary, but I have never believed that the federal government can solve the problem. The market will solve the problem, and it's outlets like Newsmax that have sprung up post-2020 that are rising in the polls that prove that as we disaggregate information and give more opportunity with more speech, those of us on the right will win.
Mr. Masters.
Thank you. Yeah, with respect, I don't think the market's going to solve this problem, and the federal government does need to regulate big tech. Look, I understand this stuff real well. Okay? I know so many rank-and-file engineers at these companies. I know middle management. I even know some senior executives. I think big tech is an existential threat to this republic. Let me see if I can give a very substantive answer in 45 seconds. First, we need to repeal or at least heavily reform Section 230. Okay? These companies have shown they're not platforms. They're publishers. They disproportionately censor conservatives. We cannot give them immunity from lawsuit. We also need to treat Facebook and Twitter as common carriers. Okay? Like the phone company. The phone company can't listen to you and I have a conversation and say, ooh, that's too conservative. They're too supportive of Steve Bannon. Let's cut them off. The phone company would probably love to do that, but they're not allowed to do that because we ban it. So why on earth wouldn't we hold Facebook or Twitter to the same standard, right? And what I really worry about most is election integrity with respect to big tech. I think the weeks before the mules got to work, big tech, by censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story, handed that election to Joe Biden. We need to literally make that illegal. I'm the only one, not just in this race, but nationwide, who knows how to get in the Senate and work with Josh Hawley to do that. Thank you.
All right, the next topic we have for you, gentlemen, is mineral rights. And this is a question, of course, of direct concern to Arizonans, but it also has national implications. Arizona has the second largest mining industry in this country, yet many of Arizona's natural resources are on federal lands. And these minerals are necessary, as everyone knows, for items like phones and computers, and even the electric cars the Biden administration loves so much. Two questions for you on this one. Would you allow more mining in Arizona on federal lands, and explain why this issue is so important to all of America? Mr. Masters, first to you.
Absolutely. Arizona's a mining state. You know, copper, it's one of the 5 C's. And I've been to these decimated mining towns. The Joe Biden administration, the federal government, has been waging war on mining, and it needs to stop. God blessed this country and this state with abundant natural resources, and we need to free it up. I think it's crazy that the federal government owns or manages 42% of Arizona's landmass, right? So you said, should we allow more mining on federal lands? Yes, the answer to that is yes, absolutely. But why not send a senator to D.C. who's going to work to get the federal government to push a lot of that land back to the state, right? It shouldn't be 42%. Let's get land back in the control of Arizonans via the state legislature. We can't be pro-mining enough, really. If it's valuable and it comes from the ground and you're not eating it, then it needs to be mined. Okay, and that's good for the towns that it would resurrect. It's good for jobs. It's good for inflation, right? Why are we begging China for rare earth elements? We can be mining so much of what we need right here in America, and that's what I'm going to help do in the Senate.
General McGuire.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a 4th-generation Arizonan, John. My great-grandfather came here to schedule trainloads of copper out of Morenci and transload them in Tucson at the Roundhouse. This is a mining state, but this is also a national security issue. Rare earth minerals that we need to produce chips and other high technology capabilities in our weapon systems are uniquely available here in Arizona, out in La Paz County and other places in this state, and the federal government and the radical left environmentalists have blocked it. There are no better stewards of our natural resources than the people that use them, the copper miners, the cattle growers, the cotton farmers in this state. In the U.S. Senate, on that committee, I will make sure that we have the ability to access those resources so we can produce our own weapon systems, our own PPE, our own durable medical equipment, our own pharmaceuticals and the rest. Because if China is producing 90% of that, we can conscript the patriotic capital of Rosie the Riveter, but we'll have no place to send her.
All right, Mr. Lehman.
John, is the only business guy on this stage who's created thousands of jobs. The only guy who's built billion-dollar companies, built billion-dollar coal, gas, and solar power plants on time and on budget. I see it for what it is, and that is that the people in the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, EPA, there's a lot of Marxists in there. Why do they do that? Because they want the progress to go to China, not the U.S. Endless reviews that make no sense other than the fact that it's intentional. I've taken them on many times, and each time we got our permits. Understand their game. Send someone to D.C., not a lawyer. Send a business guy who understands how to build big stuff, how to work with the miners. Real quick example, manganese, the world's largest unused or tapped deposit, 14 miles outside of Nogales. Yet we import 80% from China. That's used for strengthening steel, structural steel, battle tanks. That's how D.C.'s been sold out to people who take big PAC dollars from outside entities. I take none. I can be loyal to the people of Arizona.
I don't know if that was directed to anybody in particular. Does anyone want to answer that?
I'm broke.
He's broken record. Let him go. Yeah, it's fine.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about China and as it relates to the U.S. economy here. We're going to stay with mineral rights as it relates to this topic. Currently, the U.S. imports, as you guys talked about this, 80% of the rare earth minerals that we use in this country come from China right now. Do you consider China our enemy? And how do we deal with the threat of China when we need these imports? Mr. Lehman, first to you.
Let's make no mistake, China is the enemy of this country. You know, lawyers in D.C. call them adversary, things like that. And when I was serving in the military, we called the Soviet Union the enemy. And we defeated them. We did not allow them in our country, in our stock market, in our big tech companies. We didn't allow them in anything. And we defeated them. We stood the line and had them back down. We've got to do the same thing with China. I am a patriot. We've got globalists, we've got other people in this race who do not understand what it's like to go toe-to-toe with China. I've done it. In my industry, it was 40% average was what the amount of materials and equipment that came out of China. In my company, it was 5%. So I understand how to deal with these guys. Guys, we've got to get them out of our country, stop buying our land, get them out of our schools. It's going to be a tough transition, but if we don't do it now, guys, we're not going to have a country for our kids and grandkids. Tough medicine, but we have to make it happen. So send someone tough to D.C. for a change that can go make things happen.
All right, next up is Mr. Masters here on this one.
China is absolutely the enemy. And China's rise, right? And you mentioned China controls about 80% of these rare earth minerals worldwide. It's a perfect example of the stupidity of our leadership class. And I blame Republicans historically just as much as Democrats on this for decades until we got President Donald J. Trump in 2016. The elite in D.C., the people in charge, were just complicit in selling this country out to China. You know, George H.W. Bush, he thought it made a lot of sense to have so-called free trade with China. You know, surely we can help China industrialize and liberalize and become a Western democracy like us, right? Wrong. Okay, but that was naive in the 90s. And then you got Bill Clinton to carry the same policies. And then it started to become negligent in the 2000s. By the time you got to Obama and Biden, it was criminally negligent. President Trump came on the scene and he reminded us, no, China, they're a communist totalitarian dictatorship. It is the enemy. Jimmy, on your website, you literally call them the adversary. And you make fun of people who call them the adversary. It doesn't make sense. He knows a lot about China because he got rich selling Chinese solar panels. Okay? Send someone to D.C. who knows China's an enemy, who President Trump trusts.
Mr. Lehman, you want to respond to
Yeah,
that?
John, let's talk about hypocrisy, guys. We know big tech, how they do everything to outsource jobs to China, including the companies that he works for in the Peter Thiel, guys. No one worked harder. I was the leader in the power industry to make sure we built American companies here. All the lies that have come out of their $17 million in funding to come attack me is just lies, guys. That's what hypocrisy is all about. Swamp creatures who want to lie. Building big companies in America, being America first. I could have made a lot more money buying cheap Chinese crap, but we built American companies first here.
All right, your
All
turn,
the
General
solar panels
McGuire.
are made in China.
John,
Let's let General McGuire get in here.
yeah, John, we'll interrupt this Wimbledon tennis match real quick for a discussion on what the problem is with China. China is the greatest existential threat. They said they plan to take Taiwan by 2030. They've recently updated that as early as 2027. I don't trust anything China says. They're producing 90% of the fentanyl precursor chemicals. They're shipping them to the West Coast. The Mexican cartels synthesized fentanyl. When I was the commanding general, we had a counter-narcotics task force, worked with all those great agents. First time I saw it on a report was the first quarter of 2016. I retired April 10th, 2021. The March report of 2021, it was the #1 thing in street value. Over 100,000 citizens died last year of fentanyl overdoses. That's 125 infantry battalions. If that had happened in the previous year, John, that's all we're talking about. If you don't believe China is trying to destroy us, and this is why we have to get it back, you're not keeping up with current events.
I want to go back now to the topic of immigration. Certain counties in Texas have declared this crisis at our southern border an invasion. While some cross the border illegally, seeking a better life, some obviously cross the border for illicit purposes like drug smuggling. Do you favor any sort of amnesty at all for people who have crossed the border illegally but have not committed any crimes while in this country? And do you agree that some of these legal immigrants are here doing the jobs that Americans simply do not want to do? Let's go to Mr. McGuire first on this one, or General McGuire, sorry.
Thanks. I do not favor any amnesty at all. Illegal activity is illegal activity. This is the problem. I tell people you cannot blow a high-pressure water line on your sink and scream for more mops. The way the Democrats have always dealt with this is to say they want to scream for more mops. You first have to stop the leak. We're going to do that with enforcement, with surveillance, with helicopters, and money to complete the wall. What do you do with the flood? I've said before, you have to give me proof that the immigration laws don't work. Tell every person that is here illegally to come out of the shadows. Give them a period of time to get to the end of the line and process through the normal immigration process. No cutting the line, pay a fine, get in line, because people that say we're going to deport 14 to 20 million Americans, the federal government will pick the wrong 20 million.
Mr. Lehman, next to you.
Mr. John, and again, as a business guy, I listen to the experts, and that's the National Border Patrol Council. And what they tell me, Jim, if any of that talk coming out of D.C. is out of the Democratic side, even some of the Republicans, is only hastening the amount of illegal immigration that we have in this country. We have the most beautiful, ample, legal immigration system on the planet, and that's the way it should be. What they want and they need is policy to stop illegal immigration today so we can stop that inflow today. And then inside of our country, we must get back to removal of the criminal gangs, all of the illegal activity, the cartels, everything that the left, including Mark Kelly, aid and abet by their actions in the U.S. Senate to allow this to continue to happen. So we've got to get very serious because the crime rates in this country are spiraling out of control, as well as the overdoses of 2,600 per week of fentanyl coming through this country. That kind of stuff must stop before we ever talk about anybody else. No, no, and no to amnesty.
All right, let's get to Mr. Masters last on this question.
Thank you.
We can never amnesty any illegal alien, period. If your first interaction with our country is to break its immigration laws, you will never get amnesty. You will never become a United States citizen. That is a line in the sand. We will never cross it. We have to stop incentivizing illegal immigration. You know, the left, Mark Kelly, he'll make noises about border security. But Mark Kelly doesn't want to deport anybody, no matter what they do, right? If you're not deporting people, you don't have border security. And I think that literally everybody that Joe Biden has let in, at a minimum, deserves to be deported. Okay, absolutely. Administratively, we can start with the criminals, okay? There was just a Guatemalan illegal alien who raped a 10-year-old girl in Ohio. The media tried to hide it for 4 days. Maybe you've heard about this. Mark Kelly wouldn't want to deport somebody like that before he got the chance to rape a 10-year-old girl, okay? So the left wants to play games with our hearts and, oh, the people. No, we need to be deporting people who break the law, and I'm deadly serious about that.
All right, thank you. Now, for our next questions, we wanted to show everyone a clip from one of your political campaigns, one of your political ads. We'll ask you a question about the content of your ad following it. The first one we have is from Mr. Lehman.
It's a DC gang! Well, if it isn't Big Jim Lehman.
We're tired of being pushed around.
And open borders.
And gas prices.
The good people of Arizona have had enough of you. It's time for a showdown. I'm Jim Lehman, and I approve this message.
Well, we know your supporters like it, Mr. Lehman, and you ran that ad during the Super Bowl, of course. And we've also seen an increase in the number of mass shootings here recently. And Congress has passed laws to protect the Supreme Court justices, give them added protection. Now, do you think political ads depicting violence, even in jest, as clearly that was, is good for our political discussion?
Well, John, again, by the way, in reholstering that revolver, I did do that. It took 32 times. I had 30 with the guy that was teaching me, and then Sheriff Lamb came on, who was part of the ad, and the second time he showed me I got it right. You know, I think this guy is sometimes you got to do a little of this, because what was going on in that ad is that the Marxists had come to town to take over an American town that didn't need Marxists. And so I'm simply saying, guys, get rid of these guys. And yes, our Second Amendment is precious. So are assets in our schools, and yes, we need to harden those with off-duty police officers. We have a mental health problem in this country that the left have put everybody on the street. That needs to be addressed, but not our Second Amendment, guys. That's our last line of defense that we have in this country, not only in our homes, but in our country as well.
All right, then the next ad we have is from Mr. Masters. Let's take a look at that one.
Psychopaths are running the country right now. You've got Biden, Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mark Kelly. These people don't care what's actually happening to you. If you're paying double for a tank of gas, they'll say, don't worry, that's temporary. If you see millions of people coming across our southern border, they'll say, don't worry, it's racist to care. Or if you're concerned that your kid's school is shut down, again, they'll say, don't worry, safety first.
All right, Mr. Masters, you begin that ad obviously with the words psychopaths are running this country right now. Now, if you are elected, of course, you might have to work with Senator Schumer someday, who you obviously call a psychopath.
Or not, right? How about that?
Well, do you think this type of inflammatory language is good for public policy?
I'll defend what I said. Yeah, how else? Look at what the Democrats are doing. Okay, everything that they touch is just on fire right now. They've delivered nothing but chaos and pain. They've given us a border crisis, an inflation crisis, a supply chain crisis, crime is skyrocketing, and look at the ideology that they're pushing in the schools. And so I'm sorry, but I look at what the Democrats are doing. And to go back to my Jimmy Carter analogy, Jimmy Carter, man, he was incompetent, he was misguided pursuing these left-wing policies. It didn't work, but I think his heart was in the right place. Contrast that to the Democrats in charge right now. I think they're ashamed of this country. That's why they're pushing the 1619 history curriculum, teaching kids to hate this country. They don't believe in America. They don't believe in nations. They believe in globalism. They believe in open borders. And I think that's psychopathic. I really do. Okay? And so I'll defend that ad. And, I'm proud of it, frankly.
Well,
The next
John,
step.
I just like to say there is something that Blake and I agree to. I think his ad was well done.
Okay.
I appreciate
We
that.
can
Thank you.
disagree, and we can agree. We can also agree here. Let's get to General McGuire's ad here. Let's take a look at this one.
In Arizona, border security can be life or death. There are good men running for the Senate. Good stories about how they might shore up the border. But I'm the only one who's done it. As commanding general of the Arizona National Guard, I stood this ground and directly oversaw operations that kept your family safe. I can do it again. I'm General Mick McGuire, and I approve this message.
General, you called your opponents good men in that ad there. You're obviously running a different kind of campaign, though. Do you think you need to go negative, though, at some point on your opponents?
No. I think I need to make it clear that we need a great leader. Now, I will tell you this. I'll defend that ad. I am the only one. I'm not going down to the border for photos. I've been down there many times. There's a picture of my great guardsmen from this great state, your neighbors, doing a drug narcotic interdiction near Safford or near Sonoyta. And I'm telling you, everything that we face right now is a real threat. As a fourth-generation Arizonan, this is a deadly serious problem we have. The only thing that demarcates us from Mexico is the border. The thing that makes us the greatest country in the world is the rule of law. If we walk away from it now, you're never coming back. You're never coming back. And that's why we have got to enforce every law. The radical left wants control of your children, your thought, your resources, and your gunpowder. That's why I'm running, to stop that.
All right, the next.
John, as a fellow veteran, I'd like to thank Mick for his service, and one of those who are not a woke general. Thank you, Mick.
Duly noted. Duly noted. Let's talk about Social Security. I know this is a big issue for Arizonans. Of course, this state is a desirable retirement state, and Kiplinger's recently named Arizona a top 10 state for retirement. And given that your voter base is of Social Security age, and that age is increasing, how would you solve Social Security's coming insolvency, and would you cut benefits? First to you, Mr. Lehman.
We're sending $4 trillion to the federal government. We started with a balanced budget back in 2000. First time we sent it in a long time. Even then, that was 2, escalated forward today to $3 trillion. We send 4. Yes, our demographics have gotten older, so we need 4 without cutting. We got to start cutting this federal budget. But one thing we cannot do is touch Social Security or Medicare, and another one is the security of our country, from the military, ICE, border, police. Those two things must be funded and must be efficient to do that. After that, everything else must be on the table. We have to save this country. We cannot continue to pile endless debt on. So everything else, things like closing Department of Education, closing Department of Energy, things that we have to start doing. But also, guys, we also have to grow our way out of this. Send an American business guy up there who understands how to bring manufacturing back to America, do mining, also to bring everything back that we can to make sure that we have the jobs to build the country's ability to fund those pensions.
All right, General McGuire, next to you on this.
Yeah, John, the thing, you know, when I was commanding general and I would fly back and forth to D.C., the one thing that irritated me the most was that they would talk about the Social Security program as a mandatory spend. It's not. It's a trust fund that every American senior paid into, and the full faith and credit of the United States is against that. The idea that it's a mandatory spend and we've allowed politicians to raid that kitty, put people at risk as inflation goes out of control with failed fiscal policies. My commitment to every senior is we will never cut your Social Security. But there is nothing we can do with inflation adjustments that can be stopped if you won't vote for me to get me to stop the radical left extremists from gutting this country. You paid into it. We're committed to making sure that you have it. We're not going to dislocate 75-year-old women in the middle of Sun City in September when it's 110 degrees. That is not going to happen.
Mr. Masters.
I agree with General McGuire. We cannot touch Social Security, okay? Under no circumstances can we, will we, or should we cut benefits for seniors, for retirees, for people who are currently drawing on these benefits, for anyone reasonably close to drawing on these benefits. Okay, President Trump warned traditional Republicans in 2016. He said, Republicans, they have big ideas for getting rid of Social Security. Can't do it. President Trump was right. I agree with him on that. We cannot pull the rug out from people who built their lives expecting the U.S. government to honor its promises. Okay, now that said, if you ask an 18-year-old if they expect to receive Social Security someday, they will say no. To young people in this country, the system is already broken. It's a problem for my generation to solve. We need to solve it. And read my lips, under no circumstances will we cut Social Security benefits. It's never going to happen.
All right, gentlemen, the next topic we have for you is gun control. All of you are ardent supporters of the Second Amendment, and we have seen, again, mass shootings recently. We hear more people speaking up in favor of gun control, even some Republicans. Last month, an Arizona policeman was shot and killed during what should have been a routine traffic stop. In 2022, 2 policemen have been killed and more than a dozen officers have been wounded by guns in Arizona. Talk to us about what policies you would propose to balance the Second Amendment with public safety. First to you, General McGuire.
Yeah, thanks. I do want to go back on the Second Amendment relative to the ad that Jim ran. I understand the frustration that people are feeling, but the most important thing we can do in the Second Amendment community is be responsible about gun ownership. We have to be very, very clear about safety, training, and that requirement. When I had an infantry battalion, we would never issue a weapon to a soldier that wasn't properly trained and qualified. We saw what happened with Alec Baldwin when he used a weapon. This is a real problem, folks. It's a real problem. On the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, freedom defined there as from tyranny of the government, your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Full stop. Okay? The fix going forward is this. We have to get serious about mental health. We have to have see something, say something, especially for young males. And we have to make very, very clear that we will never walk away from your right to bear arms.
See something, say something. Is that similar? Do you support red flag laws?
I do not support red flag laws. See something, say something is if you have a 17-year-old young man posting threats on social media who's a minor, someone needs to talk to their parents, the school, and the police and law enforcement need to take that very, very, very seriously.
I want to go to Mr. Lehman next and just see if you had anything to say about the General's comments about your ad there.
Yeah, again, I understand what the General's saying. Again, I'm all in for gun safety. In my company of 1,800, John, one thing you got when you signed up for your benefits in a company, when you got your mental, your dental, your medical benefits, you also got an automatic 5-year membership in the NRA. The NRA is one of the safest, their biggest programs are teaching gun safety. In addition, we gave them classes in concealed weapons carry because all these guys that were deployed across the country building these big, beautiful power plants, their loved ones were at home. So I wanted to make sure both the spouse at home and the person traveling understood how to use guns safely for their home defense. Because we don't have a Second Amendment problem in this country. We have a crime problem. The Arizona Police Association tell us they deal with the same small percentage over and over again. We got to stop this revolving door, get real DAs to put people away that are causing habitual criminal activity.
All right, next to Mr. Masters on the same question.
The Second Amendment means what it says, shall not be infringed. You know, in many ways, it's the most important amendment. It's the one that defends all the others. I'm convinced that without gun rights, before long, Americans would have no rights. Okay, so I agree. It's a crime problem. It's not a gun problem. And look at how the left tries to confuse people and conflate those issues, right? Anytime there's a horrible gun tragedy, a murder, a mass shooting, something like that, the left, they come for our guns, right? Law-abiding citizens. That's what the program is for the progressive left. They want to disarm you. They want to disarm me. They would prefer that America looks more like Canada or Australia. And we will never, ever let that happen. The Democrats don't care about crime. Again, they're not cracking down on gang violence. They're not cracking down on the George Soros-funded prosecutors who let people out of jail, right? We need to get serious about crime, slap the handcuffs on people who do bad things, but under no circumstances let media sensationalism and Democrat emotionalism disarm Americans. On my watch, it will never, ever happen.
I want to give a hat tip to a special audience member we have tonight with us. Former U.S. Congressman Barry Goldwater Jr. is here, son of Senator Barry Goldwater, founder of the American Conservative Movement. He's in the crowd with us tonight. Let's give a round of applause for Congressman Goldwater. Now, this question is about the general election. All three of you are presenting your conservative credentials, but in recent years, Arizona has become a purple state. Currently, unaffiliated is the second largest voter bloc in this state. Of course, Arizona also has 2 Democratic senators right now. And do you think your statements vying to be the most conservative candidate in this race will play well in the general election? Mr. Lehman, first to you.
John, we have met with the independents all across the state, and they hear our message, and it resonates with them. There is no difference with them about securing the southern border is their #1 issue, and getting the crime down so that it's not in their neighborhoods as it is today. And that's why the National Border Patrol Council endorsed me, as well as the Arizona Police Association. They see inflation just like we do in the Republican Party. It is out of control because you do not have business leaders in D.C. Send business leaders to D.C. so we can get business taken care of. Those are the same things that apply to independents or to Republicans, things that matter every day. Sitting around the table, understanding what they're going to do to make sure they got food on the table next. This craziness that's going on in D.C. needs a fighter to go to D.C. and stand up for all of Arizona and get the federal government back into their constitutional little small box.
Mr. Masters, next to you.
Yeah, I think Arizonans actually want to hear a conservative message. You know, much ado is made about, oh, it's a purple state, it's a changing state, it's a swing state. Yeah, it's changed over time. I grew up here, and I remember what it was like. And it is at risk of becoming a blue state in 5 or 10 years. But right now, the independents that I meet with, man, they are just mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore. The Democrats in power have failed, and it would be a mistake, I think, for a conservative candidate to say all the right things in a primary and then move to the squishy middle. That's not what people want to hear. What we need to do is run conservative candidates who can articulate these correct and conservative principles, right? Our correct policies, this America First agenda. We need someone who can articulate that in a way that attracts, not alienates, independents. Okay, normal people in this country who are not paying attention to politics. God bless all of you for being here. I wish more voters were like you, right? We need activists. We need people paying attention. Most people just want to be free from government interference and have a safe neighborhood and a safe school where their kid isn't being taught to be transgender and hate Donald Trump, you know? With the right candidate, this message works, and we will crush Mark Kelly.
All right, we're going to get to General McGuire here, and then we're going to do some lightning round questions before we do the closing remarks.
All right.
We'll go to General
well, thank you
McGuire
for
now.
having Barry Goldwater Jr. here tonight. He was one of the first to endorse me. I appreciate that. And in the ad you ran, there was an ad before that I had a very short 8-second clip. I said the last time Arizona sent a federally recognized 2-star general to the United States Senate was Barry Goldwater, and that worked out just fine. And with me, you do not have to sacrifice electability or conservative constitutional principles. That's the difference. Leadership is leadership. Unfortunately, the body politic has devolved into likership. Everything that this candidate presents to you is the most proven, trusted, confident leader who has earned the trust not only of the Republicans, the independents and the rest, and the Democrats, because they all served in my formation from all 15 counties for the last 8 years.
All right, guys, let's get into the lightning round. We ready for some quick answers? A word or a couple of words for each one of these questions. We're going to start with this one right here, and we'll just kind of work down the row here, starting with you, Mr. Lehman. Should we abolish the Electoral College?
Absolutely not.
Okay. General?
We cannot go to a national popular vote. The Electoral College is the only thing that protects this great constitutional republic. All of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the media, John, want to tell you this is a democracy. This is a constitutional republic of sovereign states.
A republic if we can keep it, right?
I'm not saying you do, but, you know, some of the mainstream media guys like to talk about democracy a lot.
Mr. Masters, next
That's
to you.
absolutely correct. The Electoral College is what protects this republic, and we're never going to get rid of it. I'll see to it.
All right. Next question, tax subsidies for electric cars. Mr. Lehman.
As Elon Musk would say, no. Same with charging stations. Let me go to the broader topic, though. Anytime we've introduced a new energy platform like natural gas-fired plants, there was a program in place to get it off the ground, and it went away over 10 years. We did the same thing in the solar industry, and it went away until Biden extended it, which he shouldn't do. We're doing the same thing today in energy. But all of that goes away in a very short period of time.
All right, this is a lightning round. I got 15 seconds for each of you, General, and then to Mr. Masters.
Yeah, crony capitalism has to stop, whether it's for solar companies or electric cars. You cannot have the federal government pick winners and losers in the marketplace.
All right, Mr. Masters.
Well said, sir. I couldn't agree more. I'm disgusted with crony capitalism. I'm disgusted with taxpayer subsidies. I'm disgusted with the government picking winners and losers. And yeah, I don't care if it's for solar or for electric cars. We can't be subsidizing AOC's Green New Deal.
All right. Well, it is now time for the candidates' closing remarks. The order determined by a blind draw prior to tonight's debate. We have 1 minute for each of you. First up, Jim Lehman, second, Blake Masters, and last, General McGuire. Mr. Lehman, take it away.
Arizona, we hold the key to stopping the far-left agenda. We must send someone to the U.S. Senate, someone into this race that will beat the George Soros-Kelly machine. We cannot have someone who is inexperienced, someone who is young, who has not gone through the rigor, someone who is a global capitalist from California who, by the way, never answered the question of why did he write what he said about having open borders. Send someone who's a proven leader, someone who's built billion-dollar companies, who's been a linebacker in college, a paratrooper in the military, someone who's built companies and understands what it's like to meet payrolls, to balance budgets. This team that we have has already built 9 offices across this beautiful state. These guys, either 0 or 1. 89 days is all we have in that from the primary to the general to defeat that mammoth machine that we're going to face. My team is ready. 1,200 strong, over 1 million phone calls and banks ready. We will take on Soros, Kelly, and win this election for America.
All right, Mr. Masters.
President Trump endorsed me because he likes to win. It's not just about winning this primary or beating Mark Kelly, although we're going to do that, but it's about winning back this country. The Democrats have destroyed our border. They let violent criminals just roam freely. Prices keep going up and up and up. And the Democrats' solution to problems is to teach your kid to change their gender. Okay, we're up against some crazy radical activists, and we can't afford to play defense anymore. We need to learn from President Trump and play offense. So yeah, we're going to close the border. We're going to stop inflation. We're going to stop election fraud. But this is about putting in leaders who are going to work for the future of this country. I said it 30 years from now, when my boys are my age, I want them to live in a country that works. Okay, the left, they attack me, they tell lies about me. Layman parrots some of these lies because he's desperate, because they know I'm the America First candidate, the Trump-endorsed candidate, and I will beat Mark Kelly. And so such new, bold leadership in the Senate, it's going to make your head spin. Thank you.
All right, let's give the last word goes to General McGuire here. General, take us away.
Thanks, John. Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. You can buy a politician, but you cannot buy a great leader. You can buy a politician, but you cannot buy a great leader. I have told you early on that I am the one person who tonight, I think, has received applause from Blake and from Jim. So I appreciate their endorsements. And ultimately, we have to beat Mark Kelly. Whether we like it or not, his wife was shot at point-blank range. She was the first lady and still is of the Democratic Party in this state. And he's an astronaut. How are we going to neutralize that? I've told you. We both graduated from a service academy. We both flew in the first Gulf War. He's an astronaut. I'm commanding general of the largest mobilization since 1942. And in uniform, he's got to salute me. So we got that going for us.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up
you.
there. Thank
God
you
bless
to
this
all of our
country.
candidates. We gotta wrap it up. We're out of time. Thank you to our candidates. Thanks to the audience, and a big thank you to everyone here at the Madison Center.